Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the One to Know podcast. I'm Joel Haas.
I'm Lyle Allenstein.
And I'm Lexi Linderman.
Today, we'll talk about Penn State's most recent game against Illinois. We'll preview the upcoming matchup against UCLA, and then we'll give some other updates on the program. But to kick it off, now that we've had some more time to go back, watch the film, look through the stats, what are some of you guys' main takeaways from the Illinois game?
I think it was big to see Abdul Carter have that big of a game. I mean, he was kind of quiet on the stat sheet the first two games, and he kind of really made a big impact against Illinois. Definitely his biggest game of the season, National Player of the Week. Big accolades for him. And we also got to see him play defensive end and linebacker for the first time, which I thought was really interesting. It seemed like to me he had more of an impact when he was playing linebacker, and I wonder if that's something we'll see a lot more moving forward with the linebacker depth kind of in question, especially we don't know Dom DeLuca's status. He was back at practice, but, you never know. So nobody thinks seeing Carter have that big of a game was huge. I also think, the score doesn't really show it, but Penn State kind of just, destroyed Illinois in, every metric. I think that was big. The defense had a huge second half. And that's definitely something they're going to look back on and get some confidence going forward. I mean, they've said it all week at media that, their standard is the standard, and they met that standard against Illinois.
Yeah, the standard, something about the standard every single time we talk to somebody. With the defense, I also was impressed with Zane Durant. He had a couple of sacks. I think he had 4 tackles, a TFL. I've been saying it, but I think you can make the argument he's been the best defensive player this season for Penn State, regardless of what the stat sheet shows. That impact he has on the interior is just really disruptive. But overall, I was impressed with the defense because this is the best offense that they've seen so far this year. Luke Altmaier, obviously people were kind of saying that this was going to be a Luke Altmaier versus Drew kind of game, who was going to win it. I disagreed with that, but I think they really shut down Luke Altmaier and then obviously the Illinois wide receivers. Those are the two best that they're going to face with Bryant and Zachary Franklin. But I just overall impressive. You saw A.J. Harris get a takeaway. That was his first interception since his senior year of high school. I think all around, everyone was making a big impact. I was impressed with Dakari Nelson, who got the start over Tyler Elsdon at defense with Dom DeLuca sidelined. Obviously, they list 12 starters, so you can't say what you want about that. But overall, impressive. But I think that the biggest thing was I think Penn State did control every area of this game, regardless of what the scoreboard really showed at the end. I think on both sides of the ball, they had full control. Obviously, it was a slow start. And then, you were raising some questions when Illinois just marched right down the field because you haven't really seen Penn State get off to a fast start. And I think that's something that I want to see improve going forward. Obviously, with the other thing with that is penalties. Mm-hmm. Those are my two biggest takeaways because once you get into that, obviously UCLA, but then that 3-week stretch when you've got USC, Wisconsin, Ohio State, you can't start slow. So I think this upcoming week, those are the big things that they should clean up.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys saw, but kind of to your point, Parker Fleming on Twitter every week does the did we really get beat that bad post, and it's the success rate of every play, and Penn State out of every FBS versus FBS game had the largest margin or the largest difference in success per play over Illinois, and ended up only winning 21-7, and obviously there were the 2 missed field goals. And then there was the 4th and 3 that they went for and didn't get. And, maybe if they kick a field goal there, that's another 3 points. And if you add all that up, Penn State had the chance to win 30-7. But obviously wins, just by 2 touchdowns. So I think the score was a little bit misleading just based on how much the Nittany Lions actually dominated that game. Especially, again, looking at that success rate. But regardless, Penn State picks up a ranked win. They move up to number 7 in the AP poll. They're sitting at 4-0. And on Saturday, they'll finish out their homestand by welcoming UCLA to Beaver Stadium in the Stripe Out. UCLA not off to a great start so far, sitting at 1-3. Their only win was a 3-point victory over Hawaii, so not super impressive there. Last week they got blown out by Oregon, and they enter this game as 28-point underdogs. But I'll throw it to you guys. I mean, what are you expecting to see in this matchup?
I think Penn State should run away with this one. You can make the argument that this is their final tune-up game of the year. Obviously, Illinois was not really a tune-up game because that's a ranked opponent, and obviously gave Penn State a run for their money. But I think they should – I know I just talked about it, but they got to clean up the penalties, number one, and just get off to a fast start, leave no room for error. I don't really think this game is going to be particularly close. Obviously, UCLA's quarterback, Ethan Garbers, transfer from Washington, might not even play, and obviously he was put in a tough position with 5-star quarterback Dante Moore transferring to Oregon in the offseason. But it's not like he's been all that great this year. Granted, they've lost to 3 ranked teams in Indiana, LSU, and Oregon, but they barely beat a Hawaii team. They haven't really shown much on the offensive side of the ball. Their run game is not good. And you saw...
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Yeah, something like that. Well, you saw Penn State limit Illinois to 1.1 yard per carry. And obviously all the guys we've talked to so far on the defensive side of the ball this week are anticipating lots of a big passing attack, air raid offense. And, when you know the Penn State defense is that good at shutting down the run and you could really focus on throwing the ball and shutting that down, I think that's just going to be I think the Bruins' offensive attack really has no shot in this one. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Bruins' offense is basically going to come up with pretty much nothing this game. I mean, I have them scoring a touchdown. I just think, I think this honestly could be a game where you see the backups come in towards the end. I definitely think it's not going to be close. I just don't think UCLA is that good of a team. I mean, they have a few players on defense that are pretty good, but I think Penn State's offense is too explosive, too good for UCLA to really cause any problems. It is interesting though. We didn't see Nick Singleton at practice yesterday. James Franklin's answer was very cryptic about where he was, and then the running backs coach, Juwan Sider, didn't really have an answer today either. So to be determined whether we see him against UCLA, but I mean, we had him at media on Tuesday, so I feel like, not to speculate,
yeah.
But
I'm really not. I would tell you I'm not that concerned about Singleton not being available on Saturday. Just because, obviously we left practice and we were Nick Singleton wasn't there, but nobody really kind of said anything about it. Obviously he was asked about it, and he said he just wasn't available, or he had nothing to tell us right then and there about his status. And obviously, it's a little concerning, but he was at media,
mm-hmm.
On the day before we saw practice. Obviously, James is just looking out for the team and his players, so he's not really going to give you a full answer, which I think it's fair to ask him about his status because that's the job as the media. Just you're reporting on what players are doing, but I think it's fair of him just to say he's not there and he doesn't have to give a reason. Obviously, we'll see Saturday, but I'm honestly not that concerned.
Yeah, well, regardless, I still think even if Nick isn't there, Penn State's run game is still too dominant. Katron Allen will be just fine. The only thing that's concerning is if Quentin Martin Jr. keeps having to take snaps. He would have to burn that red shirt. I mean, at some point, if Nick's not okay, but that's a whole different thing. Because Cam Wallace is injured. But yeah, I honestly just don't think UCLA is going to have any answer for the Penn State offense. And I think it's going to be a big game, just for the Penn State offense in general. After a good game last week, but I mean, people wanted to see more, I'm sure. So maybe they'll see it this week.
Well, what I think is interesting is in the past. I know last year, I don't remember specifically what player it was, but James was asked about a player who was missing from practice, and he told us they had a test to take at that time or something like that. And so in the past, he's kind of told us when it's some kind of academic, reason why the player is missing, but he didn't say anything for Singleton, which is, I think, kind of raises my concern level a little bit for Singleton's status, because you have to think that it's probably not a good reason for him being gone, whether it's an injury, whether it's some kind of discipline thing, it's probably, not a good thing if they don't want to talk about it. But again, we got him for media on Tuesday, and they never give us an injured player at media. And so, either the injury happened between, those 2 days between when we talked to him and when we didn't see him at practice, or, something else happened. But again, we can't really speculate, and we got absolutely nothing from Franklin or Sider to really go off of there. But we do know he wasn't there at practice. It was Katron going through first. I think Quentin Martin was going through the drills second. So, he has a shot there to be kind of RB2 and play a bigger role if Singleton is out on Saturday. But regardless, I think Penn State should win comfortably. Another player to be watching is UCLA quarterback Ethan Garbers, who's, I guess, questionable at best at this point, and to our knowledge hasn't practiced all week. And Deshaun Foster, I think, kind of deferred when asked about his status, and James Franklin was asked about it as well on Wednesday, and said Penn State was preparing as if Garbers was going to start. They said they were, expecting him to start, which I think is interesting because that's kind of contrary to kind of some of the reports that I've been seeing. I think most people are pretty doubtful that Garbers will play, but Franklin said they're preparing as if he will play. They did say they looked at kind of the backup, who's only thrown 5 passes in his collegiate career. So, not too much to go off there, but they kind of went back and looked at his high school tape to kind of see, what kind of style of play he has. I know James Franklin said he was kind of more of an athlete than Garbers, so maybe a bit of a better runner than Garbers. And maybe if you're UCLA, the offense hasn't been great. There's a chance that he's an upgrade over what Garbers would have been, because Garbers hadn't been great so far this year. But that's just another situation to monitor. Other injuries, I know you guys kind of talked about Dom DeLuca, but we saw him back at practice. He was wearing a cast on his right hand, which made it a little bit difficult for him because they were going through a drill where you kind of slap the ball away and then dive on it, kind of like a fumble recovery from the quarterback type drill. And Dom DeLuca swats the ball down, and he's like chasing after it, like bent over, and he just can't pick it up because he has that cast on his hand. So I thought it was really funny. But Dom DeLuca was back. Sal Wormley was back.
Yeah, just to go off the injuries, you obviously just talked about the guards, Sal and JB. Franklin said on Monday they expect to have at least Wormley back. He didn't mention JB. So we'll see what happens with him. But obviously Wormley full participant at practice. But just to go off that, when you saw the pair of guards go down, you saw Cooper Cousins get into the game, standout freshman who's burned red shirt. It's been the talk all offseason. And obviously you saw him a little bit at the West Virginia game. He's played a solid amount of snaps, rotating in as that second guy off the bench behind JB when he was coming off the bench and not filling in for Wormley. But I just think that this guy is really good. You don't notice a difference in guard. I'm a big advocate that if Penn State wants to go forward in these playoffs, I would start him, which says a lot considering that Sal Wormley started at right guard the last 3 years. And Vega's the most physically imposing offensive lineman, I think. But I think regardless if you put him on the field or not, future is bright on that offensive line. This guy is really good. I asked Nick Singleton and Kathryn about how he just fit in his first Big Ten matchup, just plug it in right away in a situation like that. I talked about he didn't miss a beat. I think they both called him a dog. I'm like, go figure. I'm not surprised by that. But I think that just speaks volumes to the Penn State offensive line overall, that you could put it in true freshman like that and not really miss a beat, because you had Kathryn in that Illinois game go over 100 yards. You had Nick Singleton go for 90. Just really physical running, but they both credited that offensive line for the holes that they were able to create. Obviously, the Illinois defensive line runs a five-man front, which you don't really see that much in college football anymore. And Drew talked about how, not even just during the season, but before it even started, that when you're rotating all these different guys in along the depth, that they didn't really miss a beat. You can't even tell that he's got different guys subbing in because the chemistry is there with all of them. So I think it's a credit to Phil Trautwein, because this offensive line was a position group that a few years ago was getting all the questions about can it perform, and then they're churning out guys to the league. Obviously, Olu, Caden, and Hunter Norzad all in the NFL right now. So I think my biggest takeaway from the Illinois game that we haven't touched on yet is that the offensive line is really good.
Yeah, I mean, I got to ask James Franklin about Cousins as well, and he, sounded like he was impressed with what he saw from Cousins, who got in probably, earlier than they were expecting. I don't think they were anticipating him playing at all in that matchup, but Franklin said he does want to try and get Cousins some more reps moving forward, so maybe we'll see some more of him. Maybe Lyle will get what he wants there.
James, if I know you're watching this, think about it.
Just think about it. Let's transition to a less dominant position for Penn State. Kicker.
That was smooth.
Yeah. Sander Sahadak. 2 more misses against Illinois, both from 40 yards out. And we know that his range is supposedly 60 yards. So we know he has the leg.
No wind.
Right. We know he has the leg. Yeah, maybe there's just
no
really
wind,
strong
no
wind
pads.
for a few seconds on those kicks.
Or maybe he needs the wind.
There was just a big gust of wind during those kicks. That was the problem. But yeah, he falls to 2 for 5 on the year now. And if you include last year's game against West Virginia, he's now 2 for 7 in the last 2 seasons. And obviously, a lot of them are kind of shorter kicks inside the 50 that you would expect him to be able to make. And so you have to think that there's nothing wrong with, him physically or anything. You have to think at this point that it's something mental. And I don't know what Penn State, has to do to get him right. And I've also been kind of confused by how committed they've been to Sahadak. It feels like they were very hesitant to bring in anyone else. But for that last extra point against Illinois, Ryan Barker came in and made the kick against Illinois. on that third touchdown. And so, maybe Penn State moves with him going forward. But Franklin was asked about it post-game and said it kind of is an open competition at this point and anyone can win. I'm a little bit confused by why it took them so long to actually move on to someone else. But, Ryan Barker is now 1 for 1 on extra points, which, we don't have a lot to go off of there because he's, never been the starter for Penn State or anything like that. You look at Chase Meyer, who's the other guy in that room, the other option, and he was 17 for 20 last year with Tulsa. And so that he has the capability to kick, at a D1 level at a pretty high rate. I don't think he attempted a kick longer than 50, so maybe Meyer kind of has the shortest range out of the three. I would assume that's why they've been hesitant to put him in. But again, 17 for 20 inside 50 is a lot better than, 2 for 5, right? Because Sahaydak has 5 attempts, and when Meyer had 20 attempts, they had the same amount of misses. Some really great math there by me. But yeah, I don't know. Like, who do you guys think Penn State rolls out against UCLA?
It's hard to say. I think the problem is that Franklin is just like he was asked about on Monday. He just seems to he keeps saying it's an open competition, but he also keeps like backing Sahaydak kind of. And I think it's just confusing. Like I have no idea where this is gonna go. Sahaydak is clearly, in my opinion, not the answer. When you have a game against a top 25 opponent, you need to be making field goals inside 50 yards or else you're going to have problems going forward. Like Ohio State, you could be in a situation where it's a 3-point game and you need a 40-yard field goal. And I think, like we saw when they went for that 4th and 3, when like they could have kicked a field goal, it just showed there was no confidence in Sahaydak at that point. And I think that you can't have those problems going forward. So whatever they need to do to fix the problem, they need to do it. I don't think Sahaydak's the answer. He missed field goal against West Virginia, everyone was like, oh, and then Franklin was like, I promise to make the next one. Was 2 for 2 against Bowling Green, and that was big, and what ended up being a close game, but then hasn't made a field goal since. So yeah, I would put Ryan Barker in personally, but I don't know. I honestly don't know what they're gonna do. I think UCLA they have the room to try out Barker and Sahaydak, see how they both do, because it should be a blowout, but I don't know. What are your thoughts, Lyle?
I think it's going to be Ryan Barker just because that final extra point they put him in. Sander has not missed an extra point this year. So I think that speaks volumes that they wanted to get Barker.
Some of the field goals were basically extra point range. So
yes, but he hasn't missed an extra point. So I just think if they really wanted to evaluate him going forward, they would have had him on for that extra point. But I think, because you saw right after his second miss, Barker immediately was kicking into the net on the sideline. But my biggest takeaway from this is that they talked about how competitive that competition was during camp. All their numbers were super close. But obviously we don't really see a whole lot of kicking. But what if those numbers overall weren't that great, Because
they were at 3 and 4%.
Yeah. Because we've seen what Sanders done. Hasn't been great. Obviously, he made those 2 field goals. They had his swagger back, had that nice little Instagram post. And they've expressed a lot of confidence in him. But as much as you like the kid, as much as Franklin has expressed, you got to think about your team. And even if it means messing around with Barker or even Meyer, and you try it all 3 against UCLA, because I think you're going to have a point in the game where you're going to be so far ahead that you're going to have leeway to do that. But if they roll out Sander against UCLA, I wouldn't be surprised. Once they get a comfortable lead, I wouldn't be surprised if they stopped going for touchdowns just to try out all these guys. I know I'm pulling out crazy examples here, but I think that's what you got to get to if you're Penn State, because you want to see a kicker that you're confident in going forward. Because when you're going into that gauntlet with USC, Wisconsin, Ohio State, not necessarily Wisconsin, but these are games that can be decided by a field goal, and if you don't have anyone you're comfortable kicking with, that becomes a problem.
Yeah, I was thinking it's interesting though, like you said, how it was a close competition in camp, but Sahaydak technically beat out Alex Falcons last year, and then goes over to against West Virginia. They immediately make that switch, and Falcons is pretty much money the rest of the year. So I wonder if it's just Sahaydak just is mentally in shambles, and it's just all a mental problem, because I don't know. I just don't get it. I really don't.
Yeah, I talked to Sander about that when we had him during media, coming off of the game, he made 2 field goals. So obviously the confidence was at an all-time high. But that's part of the hard thing, is that kicker, obviously, yes, just mainly kicker, it's the probably most mentally draining position because you're so quick to be loved when you're doing well, but you're so quick to be hated if you can't hit a field goal, which obviously you're seeing from the fan base right now with Sahadak, which is tough for him. Obviously, he talked about during that little scrum session that it's hard to really like stay away from social media when things are either you're being praised or you're having your name kind of like trashed a little bit, which is tough. But like mentally, he talked about when Justin Lustig got here this past offseason, that was a big thing they talked about because Lustig knew that needed to be improvement. He's done a little bit of work with a sports psychologist, which I asked him about. But it's just tough because you could do all these things to prepare, but when you're missing field goals in those big moments, then it's kind of like almost back to square one because it's easy to stay positive when you're up, but it's so much easier to just be negative when you're going way down.
Yeah, I saw people on Twitter joking, asking if Tyler Warren could also kick.
I would like to see that.
Because it seems like he can do everything else.
I would like to see that.
God.
We'll close it out with our score predictions for the matchup. So obviously we're all kind of anticipating a blowout here, but I'm picking 37-6 as my final score.
I have 42-7.
I got 45-3.
That's it for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you back here next week. But for more football coverage, you can find us at psucollegian.com and follow us on socials.